as a major stakeholder of our cooperation. And from the other side, there are the CSOs and NGOs, etc. So there are two ways of doing cooperation. One is with the so-called project approach. We give money for a project, a grant. We don't work as EU. Normally we work on grants and not on loans. So most of the money that we give are not to be given back like some other cooperation agencies. And from the other side, we work with the government, and when we work with the government, normally we pass through the public treasury. So I would like to answer to the first question, if we feel the outcome has been achieved. SSR, TRRC, etc. So you are talking about very political objectives. Look, our consideration is that Gambia is still a young democracy. We have seen the first democratic election after the Jammeh era. For me, it was a lesson to see how peaceful they were conducted and how people were very conscious of the importance of these elections. To me, only the fact that they were peaceful has a meaning. It is the meaning that Gambians have seen. We can criticize how much we want, but have seen for, let's say, 5 years of peace and development in this country, because cars came back, people can invest in their own houses without the fear that they are seized. Who goes into the fields is not scared of being raped by some junglers or something. And this as an account is, for me, per se, already a success. You say, what is the European dealing with that? Nothing. This is all the merit of the country. Now, when the new government arrived, we agreed with President Barrow that we would co-host a conference for the Gambia, the International Conference for the Gambia, where pledges were made in order to support the Gambia democratic transitions. All of a sudden, the Gambia had the eyes of the world on top of the country. So we have honored our part of pledge by adding on top of what we already had an extra envelope, as Stefan has said, in order to support the democratic transition. Now, I think that is an object of discussion, what is a democratic transition. I don't think that anybody knows if there is a real rule on how long does it take to transit from an authoritarian / dictatorial state to a democratic one. We know what happened after the first elections that in 2017 took this president into power. Personally, I think that we also know what were the difficulties and the challenges. So, yes, TRRC, they terminated the job. We supported the TRC. They terminated the job. I think that they have done an excellent work. The government is analyzing the recommendation and will come with a white paper. This white paper will tell us what kind of follow-up they want to give, the government want to give, to the recommendation of the TRRC. So if I have to take a snapshot now, I say that that process in particular is going well. I am very confident that there will be what most of the population hope, which means people that is held accountable and the government that will decide the follow-up to this accountability. Now, for what concerns us, we have supported this process. The process should have ended with recommendation. It continued with the white paper. And for us, so far, so good. Now, if the government should decide to follow the international laws and hold accountable the persons that will be indicated by the TRRC recommendation as responsible for crime against human rights and all these terrible things that they are generally responsible for, we will stand behind the government and together with other stakeholders, and I think in first place the United Nations, the UNDP, but also other partners. I'm sure that as he said before, this is largely due to the pandemic and in a way to contain it in the country. But we are, as the pandemic relaxes a little bit, we are willing to engage immediately with you. So let me start by saying that after a long break related to the COVID, we intend to reinstate the tradition of regularly inviting you for these breakfast briefings, because the EU delegations believe that having an open relationship with the media is extremely important. I am personally always happy to talk to you, and my office will always facilitate interviews for those who are interested in finding out more about our plans, priorities, programs, and projects that the EU develops and implements as part of our partnership with this country. Today I am accompanied by my head of cooperation here, Mr. Stefan Mert, and probably some of you already know him. Also, Else has already introduced herself, and Enya Brown is there as well, is part of the delegation team. Indeed, we have a lot to talk about, because the EU delegation has been very active and engaged when it comes to preparing a new phase of our partnership in the Gambia. So rest assured that in the years to come you will have a lot to write about concerning the EU-Gambia cooperation. As I said to some of you before, this is a new planning phase for our intervention in cooperation for development. So it's a nice moment to also engage and tell you what we agreed with the government and other stakeholders, including the civil society, what we are going to do together. On this note, today is a very special day because we called for this media briefing with the specific purpose of presenting you a comprehensive overview of the EU intervention in the Gambia, past and future. As we are all fully aware, this new package of plans and programs comes right at the start of the new presidential term in the Gambia. Before we go into the details, I would like to start with giving a bit of context. The European Union and its member states provide by far the largest part of international development assistance worldwide. However, the EU is much more than just that. The EU is a global actor and as such wishes to promote a comprehensive partner with the Gambia. This means a mature, respectful and mutually benefiting relationship that goes beyond the scope of traditional development assistance. Very recently, the Gambia and the EU member states voted in the United Nations General Assembly for a resolution which supports Ukraine. So that demonstrates the very geopolitical nature of the relationship we have in the world today. With the change of regime in the country in 2017, the EU-Gambia relationship has been fundamentally transformed. From the outset, the EU affirmed its support to the democratic transition in the Gambia and to the realization of the Gambian National Development Plan. Via its budget support agreement with the government of the Gambia, it supported the setting up and cooperation of the National Human Rights Commission, the Constitutional Review Commission, and the TRRC, as well as many other interventions in the area of governance and reforms. All in all, over the period 2017-2021, the European Union supported the Gambian to the tune of 365 million euro, which correspond about 22 billion Gambian dalasi, among the highest per capita in Africa. I also want to highlight that all these interventions are, of course, complemented by a strong relationship on political level between the EU and the country. In this sense, we will work very closely with the government around the follow-up of the TRRC report and the white paper that we expect will be issued very soon. We also work in collaboration with NGOs, civil society, as well as with a number of international partners, the UN and their various agencies in first place. What was this done? Why was this done? It was done because the EU and the whole international community want to continue to support the Gambia democratic transition. Because when we look at the world we live today and the insecurity we face in terms of climate and other threats, we see that democratic countries like the Gambia are more stable. They offer better opportunities for building a future in which no one is left behind. They are firmly based on the rule of law, democratic principle, and respect of human rights. Because societies need everybody on board, children, women, and men, to be able to develop to their full potential. So in addition to providing direct budgetary support, the EU has also expanded its activity in a wide range of fields with the aim of improving the daily lives of all the Gambians. In the period 21-24, we will work in partnership with the Gambian government as well as with a range of implementing project partners from international and Gambian organizations, NGOs and CSOs in the area of governance, green growth for sustainable development and jobs, and human development, including education. To cite just one example, just a few days ago we have inaugurated a project with the Kanifing municipality to build a city of the future that provides green, safe, public spaces for its citizens, among others. To further illustrate just how broad the partnership the EU and the Gambia is, and how many different projects and activities we are supporting, I am passing the floor to Stefan, who will talk about our priorities, plans, and programs in more detail. Thank you very much.
With kind of a reminder of what we had been doing before in the previous phase, and then go straight to the new programming. So, in 2016, the Gambia has decided, and the European Union has decided to support it strongly in its democratic transition, but also in its socio-economic development. You will remember, and we had a similar press briefing at that time, that we immediately sent a multidisciplinary team to the Gambia. Our Commissioner for Development came to the Gambia for the inauguration of the new president, and we set up a new national indicative program. That was in the months just after the election. In addition to that, 1 year later, in 2018, June, on the occasion of the International Conference on the Gambia organized in Brussels, we added 100 million euro to what was already allocated to the Gambia. This is a very significant gesture, and it was really with the understanding that the Gambia had been brave enough to change its regime legally, peacefully, And the aim of this gesture was to show that we were strongly supporting it. No, all those funds have been committed. The 11th European Development Fund for the Gambia is exhausted. Some projects are already finished. For example, we rehabilitated 108 kilometers of feeder road to the benefits, especially of rural people. Some of them are still running because they were committed 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and those are still there. But now we are in a new phase. As I said, the European Development Fund is finished, and we now work on a new instrument. It's called NDICI, Global Europe, and it's this time the budget of the European Union. So what are we going to do with this new envelope for the next programming phase, that is 2021-2027? First, we have divided this period into two terms. The first term ends in 2024, and then there will be a midterm review, and then we will continue till 2027. So we have three priority areas that we have identified with the government of the Gambia: civil society, private sector, international partners, and so on and so on. We've tried to be very inclusive and consultative. So first, no surprise, we will continue to support the democratic transition of the Gambia. This country is not the same as it was before. Well, you enjoy freedom of press, freedom of expression. That's an example. Many things have changed, but to a certain extent, some things didn't change. The best example is the Constitution, of course. We all know that, unfortunately, the process derailed. It's okay, it's not easy. One needs to put more effort on it. A number of texts have to be revised. There too, we can support, and we will accompany the Gambia in this transition. We want to support the reconciliation process, and we are very hopeful with the white paper that will be submitted by the government at the end of May, and we hope that we can indeed support the implementation of the recommendations of the TRRC. We all know that the security sector reform is not completed yet. There too, a number of achievements have been obtained, but, well, there is still some work to do. And we are currently devising a new project on this. You know that we are active in this sector through GIZ and DCAF, that are our implementing partners, and we will continue to be there. Second priority, that is what we call green economy for sustainable growth and jobs. It's a very large formulation that allows to do a lot of things. So first, and that will come this year, hopefully, we'll participate to the expansion of the port of Banjul. You know that there is a project devised by the Gambian Port Authority with our sister agency, that is the European Investment Bank. We will invest 50 million euro, especially to expand the jetty. In parallel, AFDB, the African Development Bank, will also invest around 50 million euro for the other issues that need to be settled, meaning relocating the administration, some new equipment, the ring road, and so on and so on. So hopefully this year or next year the works will begin, and we all know that it is well needed because the congestion time at the port is getting longer and longer. What else would we do? We have the plans, and basically it's the plan of the Port Authority to help revive river transportation. There it's more a private sector scheme that the government has in mind, meaning that the plan is to set up a special public vehicle with a project developer. The project developer would build a number of infrastructure, in particular a dry port in Basse, and after a few years this project developer would withdraw and another private sector actor, specialized in that sector of course, would come in. This is the plan, and we are ready to support it, especially by covering the risk of this new investor, and we have the instrument to do that. What else will we do? We want to work in tourism. You know that for the last 2 years, the sector has been completely decayed, unfortunately. That's the risk with this kind of pandemics. And of course, all countries living from tourism have been heavily affected. But we all see that the sector is recovering. Not at full speed yet, but before the COVID-19 crisis, the tourism sector was booming, 20% additional arrivals every year, so beyond the NDP targets. But at the same time, this very flourishing tourism was bearing the germs of its own weaknesses. What are these? It's a model that is highly seasonal. The tourism industry is working only 6 months, 7 months a year, meaning that after each tourism season, well, 2/3 of the staff is kind of laid off. Some are lucky and get a small stipend. Some, well, they are just told, sorry, we can't employ you anymore, see you next year. You can imagine the loss of motivation, the loss of competencies if you don't practice your work, and the loss of income for those people who lose their job every year. This seasonality is highly linked to the fact that the model is based on tour operators who are bringing people during the cold months in Europe, but are bringing those people in Spain, Greece, Morocco during the warmer months, just because you can do 2 plane rotations if you send those people to Spain, for example, whereas per day you can only make 1 rotation if you go further to the Gambia. So this is this model that needs to be addressed. We want to do that. We think that extending the tourist season will have a high effect on the income of the people. It's much better and more decent job if you can work 10 months a year, 8 months a year. It will have a direct effect on their monthly revenue, I would say. We all know that the basic staff in the tourism industry is not very well paid, which is also the effect of the season being only 6 months. If your hotel is only running 6 months, in order to remain somehow profitable, you have to cut on costs. And what are those costs? Staff, maintenance. So this is all the result. We have a booming tourism industry, but that is also creating or bearing the germs of other problems. We would like to diversify, of course, what the Gambia offers. The Gambia does not only offer beaches. The Gambia is a beautiful country. It has a river that is fantastic, but most of the tourists so far stay on those beaches, meaning that they don't go and spend up country, meaning that those people up country don't see the color of a euro, just because people all stay here, most of them, of course, and what they spend is spent mostly on the West Coast region. So that also we hope that we can change it by diversifying the product. Third sector where we will work is agriculture. I wouldn't say agriculture, food systems. There we have a limited amount, and you know that there are very big projects like the roots, the recent giraffe, and so on. We would like to really promote agroecology and work also on the consumption part of the food system, meaning better food. I'm not only talking about malnutrition or undernutrition. We all know that there are other foodborne diseases that are appearing in the Gambia. Obesity, overweight, diabetes, high tension. These are all, to a certain extent, linked to food habits. And it's getting more and more important in a country that is largely urbanized. These are urban diseases, much more than rural diseases. In the rural parts, you will have malnutrition, you will have undernutrition, underweight. stunting, but we have all those other that are nascent and that we would like to address too. So it's really not only about production, it's the whole cycle from production, and we know that the Gambia is not producing enough and is losing a lot post-harvest of what it produces, from production to consumption. That's the cycle that we would like to address. So that's for the second priority area. The third priority area is human development. And that's an essential point in any country. You cannot build anything if some fundamentals are not there. We are talking about education. We are not talking about health, but of course health is one of those, but many other actors are on that sector, and we are somehow too, because we have this COVID project, and we also will provide access to electricity to all health centers, public health centers of the country. But it's not the subject for a new project under this programming cycle, because there are many actors there, and we have to coordinate and ensure that our funds are invested where there are not so many other partners. So education, there we will probably build on what we were already doing a lot, without naming it. TVET, technical and vocational education and training. We all know that a large number of Gambians are dropping out after a few years of education and don't find enough possibilities to improve their skills. For example, because till recently, most of the TVET possibilities were in the West Coast region. If you were living in Basse, it was very difficult to find possibilities to train yourself and to get skills in that remote place. You were obliged to go to the West Coast, which causes other problems. We want to improve TVET curriculum infrastructure, also with a strong gender focus. Just to quote an example, a number of parents would be reluctant to authorize their daughters to go to a TVET institution far away from home if there is no dormitory reserved for girls, protected, separated. If there is this, more of them would be willing to do that. We hope that we can encourage, of course, that the curriculum includes gender issues, and we hope that we can also encourage that more women become teachers, be it in TVET or be it in the formal education. So that's the first action. The second action is yet to be defined, and that's about social protection. You know that the Gambia now avails a single registry that allows to target the most vulnerable households. It's been piloted in a number of areas. The vocation of it is that it's expanded to the whole country. So there, we don't have our ideas clear yet because it's a new sector for us, but probably by 24, we will start a new project. Again, we want to put a strong focus on gender and make sure that the transfers reach the woman, and make sure that it's linked also to a number of issues related to gender too, meaning having group discussions, having conditionalities related to sending daughter to schools for getting the stipends and so on. So these are things that we are reflecting on. The last project, and that's one that is long awaited, it's part of human development because it's about access to social services. It's sanitation, and in particular solid waste management, and basically it's the Bakote dump site. We all know that it's a huge black spot in the middle of a very densely populated area. It's causing so many problems. We want to help the 3 municipalities because it's not only Kanifing. Of course, it's it's the dump site of the three municipalities. We want to help solving this definitely. So Bakote would be turned into a zone of into an intermediary site where sorting would be done, recycling would be done, and that could become a zone of circular economy around recycling activities. And then the new landfill, final landfill site would be relocated in another part. It costs a lot of money. This is big infrastructure work. Of course, the whole system of collection should also be adapted. But we